Welcome into Shot and Vipp, a podcast brought to you by Inside Carolina this football season. I'm Taylor Vippolis hosting this. As always, I'm joined by my former teammate, Jeff Schoettmer. Shot, UNC goes to Charlottesville. Carolina beats Virginia 41-14. UNC ends a 4-game losing streak. They finally get in the win column in conference play. My first thought watching this game was knowing the challenging couple of weeks that this North Carolina team had, losing a teammate in Tylee Kraft was just as a letterman, as again, somebody who cares about the program, how happy I was that these guys kind of got this moment. What were your first impressions watching this game?
I mean, so UNC was obviously playing with heavy hearts, after the passing of Tylee, like you just mentioned, and I can't imagine how tough that would be to play in a game, 2 weeks after, a week after you bury one of your best friends and guys that you've grown so close with over the last couple of years, and so it was cool to see how inspired they played. They played a clean game for the first time really all year. No turnovers on offense. They took the ball away on defense. There was, I think 5 penalties total in the game. The operation was just smooth on all sides of the ball. So it was a great performance. I mean, this game in Minnesota are obviously our 2 best performances of the year. And, we started out a little shaky. I was nervous at the very beginning. We go 3 and out, and we do have a penalty that negates a first down on our first drive. And then we punt the ball away and let up a 20, 30-yard punt return. Virginia goes right down the field, and, they're on the 1-yard line. And I'm like, here we go again. And after Virginia snapped the ball over the quarterback's head on first and goal from the 1, the tides kind of turned, and, we started making plays. We held them to a field goal there, and we got the momentum back in our favor. And we played a complete game. I thought Jacoby Criswell, he just looked more and more confident and comfortable each week. He's getting the ball out of his hands quickly. He's making the right reads. He's making tough throws. He's extending plays with his legs. And, he's kind of the catalyst for our offense right now. Obviously, Hampton's the best player. We feel good about any time with the ball's in his hands. But Criswell's making winning plays. And the thing that I love about it is he doesn't have any turnover-worthy plays. He's not putting the ball on the ground. He's not throwing it with a chance for the other team to make a play defensively and pick the ball off. And so he's playing, with patience and good vision, and, he's making winning plays. So, and I haven't even mentioned our defense. Our defense, they played lights out. Obviously you look at the stats, 10 sacks, the rushing yards, obviously a lot of it is due to the stupid rule in college football where, the sack numbers go into the rushing stats, which doesn't make any sense. But, if you negate those sacks, I think Virginia had 70 or 80 yards rushing, which is still a really good number for our defense. And, we got the ball back twice. Ritzie had that unbelievable pick 6 that we'll talk more about. And obviously came in Rucker, got his hands on the ball. We had multiple players with multiple sacks. That was great to see. And, I think obviously, the most underrated stat in football is, how many points the team scores. And we only let up 14 points. Obviously our ones were playing up until, 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. So they played the whole game. But all around complete performance by our team, and good for Coach Brown and the staff to keep these guys together over, a trying couple weeks. And, the main thing was our team looked inspired. They looked like they didn't have anything to lose. They were having fun. They had energy. They tackled well on defense. It was a complete performance, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah, by far their most complete performance. And when you're talking about this North Carolina team having a complete performance, you have the offense, you have the defense. One of the underrated parts of this game, I think, Elijah Huzzie as a punt returner, he is so sure-handed back there.
Yep.
And there's a lot of these punts where, it's coming out like a knuckler, or you don't field it because you don't have the confidence, and then it kicks, and then rolls an extra 20 yards. His ability to secure the ball and get North Carolina great starting field position consistently is not something that's going to show up in the box score. But when you're watching it, I think it is very noticeable how good Huzzy is on special teams. And it's something that we talked about before, where this North Carolina team tends to not make these game-changing winning plays on special teams. But with Huzzy on punt return, that really hasn't been the case. And in the past couple of years, the one bright spot of Carolina special teams has been their punt return unit with Huzzy back there coming over from the FCS level. And when you're watching somebody like him, it's like, how did so many teams miss out on his evaluation with his ability out there and just being a player on that defense? And it kind of goes right into the defense point. Anytime somebody tries Elijah Huzzy, it's a win for the Carolina defense. And I know the broadcast was talking about Allen being a scratch and not having him for UVA's big receiver that had a lot of length. I want Huzzy on that number one guy every time. What did you see from Carolina defensively that led to such a strong performance from the defense for the first time that we've seen it in spurts, but we've never seen it across 4 quarters like that?
There's a couple things that really stuck out to me, and it kind of goes off of the Georgia Tech game. So I complained a lot in that podcast about how our first down defense was atrocious versus Georgia Tech. They were, Georgia Tech was averaging 7-8 a pop on the first play of the possession. And so our defense was constantly living in 2nd and 2, 2nd and 1, 2nd and short. And that's very hard for a defensive play caller to call the game and the defense to run their defense against. It's just, it's hard to do. And this game, we had way better first down defense. We were, a lot of times you look up and it's 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7 UVA, and it's way easier to call a defense that way. The other thing that stuck out to me was our tackling. Majority of the time, the first defender that got to the ball was knocking the ball carrier down on first contact, and that was good to see. Our tracking angles were way better. Obviously, the sack numbers were astronomical. Having 10 sacks in a game is unbelievable. But it wasn't like we were sending the house or coming up with all these exotic blitzes. A lot of it was 4-man pressures that, or 4-man rush that we've been running the whole year, a couple of twist games. And it was just, our players came in Rucker, Bo Atkinson, Amari Campbell, making good plays and being better than the Virginia offense. So it was just a sound defensive game. We ran the same coverages and same blitzes and pressures that we have all year. We executed better and got home on some rushes, and we tackled better. There was one lapse in coverage where they scored a 60-yard touchdown, but some of the backups were in that play, miscommunication. But all in all, we had sound third down defense, sound red zone defense. So if you look across the board, our numbers were great. We obviously produced. We scored on defense. We got the ball back twice. It was a complete game by our defense, and they looked like they had great energy. And that's really it. We try to overcomplicate things on the defensive side of the ball and how we judge them. But look, if you run to the ball, you use the correct pursuit angles of the ball, you tackle well, you play physical, and you can get after the quarterback, then that's a recipe for success on defense. And we hit the nail on the head on all 4 or 5 of those things.
Yeah, according to Pro Football Focus, Carolina only had 4 missed tackles the entire game against UVA. Carolina had 10 sacks, which according to the game notes is the most since Carolina sacked Wake Forest 10 times in 2000. Carolina wins the turnover battle 2-0. The offense doesn't turn the ball over. You get 2 interceptions from Kamon Rucker and Javari Ritzie. Javari Ritzie, good luck topping that play this year. When he gets that interception, he's running with it with one hand, looking like a high school ball carrier out there, not a care in the world, toting that rock. And then you have a couple big blocks on that where somebody like Amari Campbell springs that forward, where instead of a 30-yard return, he takes it the entire way and the team is celebrating in the end zone. What did you see on that pick six and then on the return?
There's a couple things I want to say. Start with Ritzie. So I remember I was on staff when we were recruiting him out of high school, and he ran track in high school. I think he's from the Winston-Salem area maybe. And I remember Jay Bateman was talking about his relative athletic score, RAS. They do this at the combine and stuff, and they did this throughout the nation, and they usually do it with most track athletes. And he was in the top 10 in the nation for his RAS score. So it combines your height, weight, your explosiveness, I think he was running the 100 and the 200 at the time in high school, his high jump ability, his vertical explosion. And that play right there showed his athletic ability. I mean, not only was it, he tipped the ball, able to locate the ball, catch it. And then, he's on the perimeter, obviously. If you noticed, he switched the ball to his outside arm because the quarterback was going to come try to tackle him. He stiffs armed the quarterback with his right hand, has the ball in his left. And then obviously Amari Campbell sprints from, 20 yards behind him to catch up and blow up the offensive lineman that he was the only one left to have a chance to make a tackle. But that play in itself that's a culture play. Jeff Collins, I guarantee you, in the team meeting or the defensive meeting today, and Coach Brown to the team showed that play. And obviously they praised Ritzie and they highlighted his athletic ability and what a tremendous play. But they had the red laser pointer on Amari Campbell, and they're like, watch this effort. If he doesn't bust his ass, sprint an extra 50 yards to blow up the offensive lineman to spring Ritzie free, who knows? He may get him down. And, it was a winning play by the whole team. And you could see at that point how deflated Virginia was. Their offensive line wasn't even chasing Ritzie. They were all loafing, and our guys were celebrating with him in the end zone, and it was such a cool play to see. But credit to Ritzie. He's flashed a bunch this year, and he's kind of been in hiding the last couple of weeks. So good for him to get another sack, and then obviously that huge play was the highlight of his career so far. So credit to him for that. That was a cool play.
One of the emphasis of this coaching staff this season for Carolina was adding more depth and rotating people in, because it's kind of been a talking point since Mac Brown has come back. But then you get the snap counts and you have players playing like 75, 80, 90, 95% of snaps. I'm looking at the snap counts for the defensive line for Ted Monachino, and Rucker plays 46, Des Evans plays 45, Kevin Hester plays 45, Javari Ritzie plays 44, Bo Atkinson plays 32, Travis Shaw plays 26, Joshua Harris plays 25, and then Cohen plays 25. What does that kind of say about this Carolina defensive line, that they not only have that amount of guys that they can rotate in, but also that the coaches are kind of showing that confidence to be like, hey, we have 7-8 guys that could play 25 plus snaps?
I mean, that's what Coach Brown and the coaching staff are preaching all offseason. And it's kind of coming to fruition that, they are too deep on the defensive line, and they are playing those guys, the correct number of snaps that they should be. Obviously led by Kamen Rucker. We've really missed his presence over the last couple of weeks. And versus Georgia Tech, he didn't look like the old Kamen that everyone, has grown to know over the last couple of years. But he is back 100% healthy, and you can see what a force he is rushing the passer. I was surprised he caught that interception. When I was on staff, he had some of the worst hands I've ever seen from a defensive player. So he's obviously been working on his hands on the jugs machine with the receivers. So good for him, to get a hold of that ball. Back to the D line. I mean, it's good to see those numbers. If you don't want your D linemen playing 60, 70, 80 snaps a game, like the linebackers in the secondary do, at 45, I think you said that was the number that
Yep.
Rucker played. If he's playing 45 snaps, his 100% at 45 snaps is way more productive than him, 85% playing 65 snaps. So, good on our coaching staff and good on the, the depth that we've developed to be able to do that. What I've seen over the last couple of weeks, and I know people on the message boards have complained about not rotating the linebackers, but for the last couple of weeks, every third series, we've put in the backup linebackers, the backup inside linebackers, Michael Short and Caleb. They've rotated in there. It's a planned, substitution. They're going to start the third series of every game. And they've done it for the last 3 or 4 games. And, I think they probably played, 8 to 12 snaps in this game. Those are solid numbers because our defense wasn't on the field a whole bunch. I think, maybe 60, 70 plays. So for them to get some exposure, that was good to see. And we obviously played a decent amount of secondary guys and obviously had two of our starters out. So that was great to see the depth that we've been developing because we've been preaching about it for, the last 4 or 5 years. And one of the other things I wanted to hit on that I didn't mention earlier was over this podcast in the last 2 years, we've talked about the middle 8, the last 4 minutes of the second half or the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half, how critical and how important those 8 minutes are in the result of the game. And if you look at our stats in those 8 minutes, UNC outscored UVA 14-0. So, we get that touchdown obviously right before half, unbelievable throw by Criswell. Great adjustment by JJ to get his feet down and catch that ball in the back of the end zone. And then obviously, you saw Mac Brown's interview going into halftime. He's like, we've been in this situation before where we've been up big at halftime. I got to see if our team has learned from the Duke game, a few weeks ago. And obviously we've kind of gotten that corrected because we came out in the second half, get a turnover on the first drive, and then leads right to a touchdown. And now we're up, 3-4 scores, with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter. So that was good maturity from our team and coaching staff to get that issue corrected a few weeks ago, having a big lead and keeping our foot on their necks and keeping our foot on the gas offensively to move the ball. And like I said, just a great win all around.
Yeah, the last time we did this podcast after the Georgia Tech game, we were talking about K'Mon Rucker having one of the lowest scores that he's ever had against an opponent, according to Pro Football Focus. He graded out at a 38.4. Carolina really needed him. We've seen his importance to the defense. He finishes with 8 tackles against Virginia, 3 sacks, 3.5 tackles for a loss. And then he posts a grade according to Pro Football Focus, again, 93.6. So his highest grade ever against a Power 4 team in his career at Carolina. So you can kind of see he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink when it comes to the defense in terms of overall importance and kind of getting the guys to play at that consistent level. But quick break so we can remind everybody about our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. If you're going to be in Chapel Hill, you could visit them on Franklin Street. And if not, no worries. You could go online to johnnytshirt.com. With basketball starting, they've got everything that the Carolina fan could possibly want: the hats, the T-shirts, the jerseys, you name it. They've got it. It's great people and great customer service. And don't forget, Inside Carolina premium subscribers save 10% off their orders. Shot switching sides of the ball. JJ Jones, I think we could have a whole conversation just about him, where he gets 5 catches, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns. This is what you kind of expect from Jones at this point. And when he steps into that wide receiver 1 role, we've kind of talked about Carolina might not really have a wide receiver 1, but there were a few plays from Jones that, to be honest, I didn't really think he had in his bag. That screen where he takes it and he's showing that acceleration and that burst to kind of separate. What did you make of Jones's performance on Saturday?
He played great, and I think he was one of those guys that was, truly inspired by Tylee Kraft. The more I read about it, I read how close that JJ and Tylee were, and JJ and Tylee were in the same recruiting class. They're both from South Carolina, so obviously he was the first one to wear 13 after the passing of Tylee, and he just he played with a reckless abandon. He was locked in. There's he had two screen passes one that he scored on and one that he took for about 30. He played inspired football, and then obviously he's shown over the years his ability to high point. He's been inconsistent at times, but that catch in the back of the end zone, the body control to get his feet down right before half, tremendous play. Like he looked like the part of a number one receiver during this game. And I think Coach Galloway and the staff is probably just challenging him. Hey, you have the ability to do this every game. So let's just be more consistent and see, if we can get this out of you every game. So really proud of him for how he played. And, obviously Criswell had some great passes to him. So give credit to both of them. And, we need more of that down the stretch because, we'll talk about it later, but we got a 4-game stretch where we can, each game is very winnable, and, who knows what can happen. We could look up in late November and be, have 7-8 wins.
This was Carolina's first game without Bryson Nesbit, who is going to be sidelined for some time after getting surgery. How do you think Carolina navigates without Nesbit, and what did you see on Saturday that was maybe encouraging in that first showing without somebody as good as Bryson Nesbit at that tight end position?
Yeah, a huge loss. I mean, I think he was our leading receiver going into the game, and obviously, his presence when we flex him out wide, he's a mismatch in space. When we flex him out in the slot, and who covers him? A safety who's not big enough, or a linebacker who's not fast enough. I didn't see. We ran some 12 personnel. Obviously, the Johnson kid replaced Bryson, and he's not much of a pass threat, and he's not that physical. But we still have to show the ability to run 12 personnel formations because that obviously puts a stress on the defense and keeps them guessing. We can't be. It just helps. It helps keep the defense on their toes by showing multiple formations, multiple personnel groupings. But he did a good job, and Copenhaver is obviously one of our most reliable guys. He had a few catches in the flats and a couple tight end screens where he made some productive yards, and he's always going to be a good blocker for us. But I don't think we completely changed our offense. I did see, the Ship kid got in there, and he dropped an easy bubble that Coach Galloway is on his ass for, I know. But nothing crazy schematically that we had to change without Nesbit, but obviously we lose his presence and his ability to, stretch the field and win over the middle. But, anytime we can hand it to Hampton. Actually, the one thing I did notice in this game, we actually used Hampton a little bit more in the passing game than he has in the past. We called an angle route for him in man coverage on third down where he beat the linebacker to win and, picked up a big third down when we were backed up in Virginia's territory. And then he had a couple of swing passes where he broke a tackle and, gained positive yards. So I think he probably had 3 or 4 catches, and that was, we don't see that a bunch out of him. We're used to him getting the ball in the backfield, taking it from the quarterback and gaining his yards that way. But maybe that's what I saw differently is, we used him in the pass game a little bit more. McCollum had some good catches, but obviously we need some more receivers to step up because Nesbit is a huge loss. So hopefully going forward, Ship and Kobe Pacehour was pretty quiet this game. So hopefully we can get those guys ramped back up because we're going to need them in the next few.
All right, let's take a quick break so I can remind everybody about our friends over at Congruity. Congruity is the leading provider for Tar Heel business owners, payroll, HR, and employee benefit needs. Inside Carolina listeners can get a free payroll and HR assessment by emailing Matt at Congruity. Email is matt@congruityhr.com. That email again is matt@congruityhr.com. All right, let's get back to the episode. Yeah, the Pro Football Focus offensive grades kind of match everything that you said and matches the eye test where Carolina's 5 players on Carolina graded out at 70 or above. It was J.J. Jones, 83.6, Jacoby Criswell, 82.0, Nate McCullum, 73.7, Willie Lampkin, 71.6 on the offensive line. And then, of course, Omar and Hampton at 70.2. And Hampton, well, first, including Hampton, UNC has had a player rush for at least 100 yards in each of the first 8 games of the season. The first time that's happened in school history. And then Hampton this game eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark, and he's the first Tar Heel with multiple seasons of at least 1,000 yards rushing since Michael Carter did it back in 2019, 2020. Great company to be in when it's Michael Carter, Omar, and Hampton. And again, it passes the eye test, where games like this can be frustrating for a fan base, especially when you win it this big, when you're like, okay, we know this team is very capable of playing a complete football game. And there really isn't any excuses for, like, why can't we go out and beat Georgia Tech? Why can't we go out and beat Virginia? And then they put a game like this on tape, and you're kind of like, yes, like this backs up everything I'm kind of saying here. But how big is it for North Carolina to have a starting block when you're building an offense and you're trying to build a foundation and you're trying to build an identity? Hey, at the very least, we got Hampton back here. We could we could at least count on him to go for 100+ yards seemingly every game.
He's a security blanket. Anytime we need to get the offense rolling and maybe we're stagnant a little bit, and we can come up with a few plays, give the ball to Hampton. Don't overcomplicate it. And if you give him the ball 3 times in a row, more likely than not, he's going to get a first down. So, obviously we got to block it up well, but he will make people miss and he will run through people. So he's a great security to blanket to have. And, one of the most underrated things about his game is his ability to pass protect. When there's a blitzing linebacker and he's stepping up in the hole to protect Criswell, that linebacker's getting stonewalled 9 out of 10 times. And, a lot of times you see a running back that's really talented with the ball in his hands, but he's not a great pass protector. So, Hampton is the complete package, and, look forward to watching him in the NFL for a long time, because he's a special talent. And the best thing about him is he's just no nonsense. He's no drama. He just puts his head down, competes every game. And you can see anytime he gets in the end zone how excited the offensive linemen are to celebrate with him, because they love blocking for that guy. They know if they do their job, even honestly half-assed, like, Hampton's going to make them look good, but so that they have some extra motivation to block harder for him, because they know how hard he is working back there. So we need to appreciate that guy while he's here, because there's no chance he's here next year. So enjoy the last 4 games we have with this guy, because he's been a joy to watch.
Yeah, and I liked what Carolina did schematically in a lot of those short yardage situations where you know how good Hampton is. And there was a couple of looks where they gave it where it looked like Criswell was going to sneak it, and then you just toss it out to Hampton.
Yep.
And just knowing, like, he has such a great tendency, 1, to make the first guy miss, and 2, to fall forward, where anything that's like 4th and inches or 3rd and 1 or those short yardage situations, the person I want to bet on is Omar and Hampton in Carolina's backfield, no matter who Carolina is going across. And when you're looking at this North Carolina schedule, they close out November, Florida State, Wake Forest, Boston College, NC State. It's kind of like what we said last time. The way this North Carolina team plays, they could win. They could win all those games. They could lose all those games. I think it's a lot different from in the preseason, where you kind of look at the schedule before anybody's played any games, and you're projecting their 2 hardest games to be Florida State and NC State. And that's kind of completely flipped with Florida State's season going off the rails and Grayson McCall medically retiring from football. When you're looking at this November schedule for Carolina, what are your thoughts?
I think I would be highly disappointed if it's anything worse than 3-1, just because we've shown flashes of, the Minnesota game, this game of we can be a pretty damn good team, an 8-4 floor team. And, we have the ability to do that. We win out all our games in November, and we're looking at 8-4 going to a decent bowl game. And, I fully expect this win right here to propel us forward. The coaching staff has come up with some good plans. Obviously, we're pretty healthy right now. The bye week was good for us. It came at a good time. Our best player on defense looks like the old version of himself. So I would be highly disappointed if it's anything worse than 3-1. And I expect us to win all 4 games. Florida State is obviously a train wreck right now. Obviously going down to Tallahassee is tougher than playing them home, but we've lost to them the last 2 times we played them. So we're due for one against them. And, Wake, just looks like a not good Wake team. They don't have Sam Hartman anymore. They don't have Jamie Newman and, the quarterback before Sam. Boston College has been up and down. And then State, obviously, everyone knows, that game could go either way on any year, regardless of their record. So obviously we get them at home this year. So I expect us to win all 4. If we play like we did versus Virginia, then we should win all 4 and, build the momentum back up. And kind of reminds me of the 2013 season where we started off very slow. I think we were 1-5 and then I think won 5 out of 6 and then obviously beat Cincinnati in the bowl game. So there's still a lot to play for. And I think our team spirits are very high right now. I think I was reading about Mac's post-game press conference talking about how he saw so much joy in the locker room and so much happiness. Obviously, they were just so excited to get a win after, a rough 5 weeks. But hopefully we can carry that momentum, into the back half of the season and finish strong. And, my kind of prediction is we win the last 4 games. Mac announces the week of NC State, hey, this is probably going to be my last season. We beat NC State at home. We go win a bowl game, and we finish season 9-4. That's very realistic. Vipp, we like to stay glass half full in this podcast, so I would love nothing more than to see that translate to the back half of the year.
Yeah, and I think the glass half full approach is you've figured something out at the quarterback position. You have Omar and Hampton. You have a defense that has shown it in flashes. And when you're North Carolina, the highs of this season have kind of shown that this Carolina team has the pieces to at least be a bowl team. And whether they kind of get there or not kind of comes down to the execution and the coaching and what they do on the field. And yeah, I think kind of sticking to that point, every game to close the season's winnable. Every game is losable. I wouldn't be surprised if, from my perspective, I wouldn't be surprised with any result. If you told me that this team went 4-0, I wouldn't be surprised. If you told me they went 0-4, I wouldn't be surprised. So you kind of just have to take it that week by week approach. But next up for Carolina, it's that trip to Tallahassee against a Florida State team whose season is in complete free fall right now. 3:30 kick from Tallahassee on the ACC network. We'll be back next week to break it all down. Schott, appreciate the time as always, man, and appreciate everybody watching and listening.
Yep. So I just noticed your Yankees shirt. Obviously, you're in New York right now. What's your prediction for the game tomorrow night?
Man, they say the series doesn't start until you lose at home. So with that in mind, I like the Yankees' chances if they could win tomorrow. If they lose tomorrow, it's over. But that I'm still reeling from that game 1 where Freddie Freeman hits that grand slam and Nestor Cortez is 1 out away. But yeah, cautiously optimistic. Either way, I want Boone gone.
Look, I think sports fans in general just want to see this game or this series go as long as it possibly can. And we're hoping for game 7. So I'm backing the Yankees the next 2 games because I'd love to see a 7-game series. Yeah. That'd be fun.
It's crazy. I think there's 6 MVPs between both teams, 2 Cy Youngs. Kershaw's out, obviously. But in those 6 MVPs, it doesn't even count Juan Soto, who's probably playing as good at baseball as anybody right now. But we'll see. You just don't let the Yankees win 1 because you let them win 1 and then they get 2. We'll see.
Well, hey, I'm a Yankee tomorrow night.